Yeah, so today we're gonna have a session, continuation of our previous session. We've had some mashayikh, some of our members building a front-end application, a tax management application. We also have one other person building a back-end application in Laravel. So our goal today is to deploy one of those applications, front-end specifically, to AWS. And like I said earlier, I don't want to bore you with a lot of definition. This is something you could get with Google search. I want to give you the hands-on of experience. You could go back to this video and try it again. But my goal is we take the front-end application, which is was built with Vue.js, we deploy it to AWS, and I'll also be telling you how some of these things relate to the experience you have had before, probably with Netlify, Vessel, or whatever. Right. So yeah, I don't. The repository should be public. Let me try and share my screen so you can also clone the repository if you want. Like, um, paste the repository link over here. Where is it? Let me know if you can see my screen, please.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So I just pasted the repository link in case any one of us want to clone the repository and also follow along as I do. So today, what we're doing here is deploying one of our applications, the front end specifically to AWS. So a lot of front end developers, right? We are used to Netlify kind of things. We just want to say click our GitHub repository, link them together, and then type some commands, probably installation command and build command, and the rest is history. Netlify will just give you a link to your deployment, and that's what we have been doing. We'll replicate the same experience today, right? But before then, I also want to show you something on AWS that works the same thing as Netlify. Netlify is a software service that allows you to sort of deploy your front-end application without thinking about servers, without thinking about how some of these things are done in the background. But today, we want to see how some of these things works under the hood, and then we'll replicate the Netlify experience over the call. Um, to replicate this, you probably don't need to pay anything if you have an active AWS account. The only place you get charged is when you want to have a domain. So of course, domain is not free. But if you want to sort of say follow the whole experience from GitHub, from AWS S3, from Cloudflare, and then to the pipeline that builds this thing and deploy to AWS automatically. This is free for us, especially when you are any AWS user, because AWS gives you some of these services for free, at least for a year. In fact, not even a year. You can use this service to some point, but once you start getting live traffic, they start charging you. So today, what I'm about to do is I want to show you one this software as a service part of this deployment that look the same as Netlify. It is called AWS Amplify. We'll use that to deploy our application. That's the first part. The other part is I'd also now demystify some of these things. AWS Amplify itself had some level of abstraction, right? What I meant by the level of abstraction here is they didn't show you what happens when you build your code. You don't know what copy your code base from GitHub after being built, then you don't know how it gets deployed to server. And I said another thing is you don't know what happens when user just say, I want to browse through this website. So this is what we're trying to go on today. So I'll be starting with please. I have my AWS account already. Just have it on as well. So today, if you are on the call, you probably just log on to your AWS account, and please make sure you clone this repository once again, because I'll be using this repository as an example. I don't even know if I've
Yes,
introduced myself, but
please,
please,
that repository is given.
no page font like 404 error 404.
Interesting. But I
Yeah.
just wait. Let me try myself.
The repo is private.
Oh, sorry. Let me just. I think I should make it public.
Or
uh,
you can just, it's under, okay, okay, you can make it public. Yeah.
okay. It's public now, so we should be able to clone this repository. Right. Please refresh the page for Hard. It's public now. Someone is reading, listen, and here.
I'm fine. I just want to get the link to the repo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yes. What we're doing now is like Netlify. I think we should just to really get the experience. Let's start with Netlify. That would that would give us the whole thing. Um. Ivan. So we want to try and deploy this app to Netlify. I'm not sure if Netlify, Netlify should work with open a public repository. Does that still work? So okay. Ah, here. Let me see. Can I now add new website? Yes. Okay. So yeah, this is. I just want to give out the experience. Now I want to deploy this app now with Netlify, and then we'll see the process. So the first process here is telling you to authorize Netlify to pick up your application from GitHub, and this is done by webhook connection. You more of just authenticating, sending some of these requests to an endpoint on GitHub saying, I want to have read requests to this repository. And once you are logging and you're also the right user to be able to do this, of course, you'll be able to do that. And after that, the next thing is you saying you want to pick the particular application. In this case, the app is called Webinar Front End. And yes, a master branch, a base directory. It's actually the root, then the dist. Yam build, that's correct. So the build command, of course, you want to build the application to a static application. I assume that here, most of us are front-end developers, so I don't need to start explaining how the command works. So while this is working, we also have something like this on AWS, and it's quite free for small application, and it's called AWS Amplify. So we have our application login. So yes, and quick talk about cloud. Someone is at the gate. So apologies. I had to quickly attend to something. So while we're still waiting for Netlify application building, but we can also follow the process, right, to see how the whole process gets started. You see that okay, done. So, but we can still actually check the log. So you would see that what the rectifier is doing for you here is trying to do some background check for you. But if you cannot read line 1 to 8, you could see line 9 saying git clone this particular repository, right? More of cloning the repository, the same way you clone it down to your own laptop. And then it's saying patching the package.json. It's probably looking for a command for you to install the dependencies, and that's npm install or yarn install, whatever. And the guy is using npm, specifying, doing the whole magic, and then installing the dependency till the end. And what I want you to focus on here is, you see that this guy on line 85 is saying build. And the how to build, as a front-end developer, you know that this is usually a static website, more or a couple of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So it's not that Netlify is running a node environment for you to run node stats so that your application can run on node. What they are doing for you is they are building this to get the production built, a static website, and then use that to have an output to deploy it for you. So you'll see the output, and Netlify tells you now that this has been processed, starting AWS processing, and then the whole thing is done. So if you click on the link now, the permalink they gave to us, you'll see that we have our task management here on Netlify. Wowza, this works. So now let's go back to AWS now and try this experience. Hosting, yes. So this will also ask us, where do we want to pick from? Absolutely, apparently we want to also pick from GitHub, and then you click continue. Of course, the same way you authorize Netlify to be able to read on your behalf, you have to authorize AWS as well. Yeah, so AWS will tell you which of these repositories. I think it's mostly builders. Yeah. So we will only need to select what's MB. Yeah. And install and authorize. So this will automatically install a connection between AWS and GitHub, such that you can subsequently use this same permission to fetch your repository from GitHub. And we'll choose the master branch. Yes, monorepo. No, this is just a normal repository. So what are we doing here? The same way. So this give a lot of explanation than what you have on Netlify. Netlify will just tell you what's your start command, what's your build command, and then you go on and type it. At the background, Netlify would create this kind of YAML file to be able to automate that for you. But AWS is giving you the flexibility of extending your configuration as much as you want. But of course, they have pre-built configuration for you. In this pre-built, forget about the line 1 to line 5. What you should focus on here is line 6 is saying yarn install. That's your command, like that, the first command. Pre-built here means that what's that command you want us to run, so that we can install the dependency of your node, or of your Vue.js or React application. Here we're saying yarn install, and then after that, what else do we need to do? You're telling AWS here to say yarn run build. So you just want to build your application, a production application, to generate an SPA file for you, a couple of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then deploy it to the server. So the same way, we'll have to wait, and then once this is done, we'll also get a link. The same way, Netlify gave us a link here, but we can follow the progress the same way we followed on this. But if you cannot really understand all of these things, what you should just focus on is they also did the same way. So what they are doing here is majorly just installing the environment. They needed to do, this is JIT. This is them using JIT. So because if you don't have JIT on the server, how do you want to JIT clone? So AWS is doing that for you. You don't need to bother yourself on that. And it will also, follow the command, installing node, yarn install till the end. So this is how we'll just come back to this. And now, what exactly do we now want to do today? What I'm about to show you now is some of these things here you are seeing here, they have created some level of abstraction for us. You are not the one in charge of this. You don't even know how this work at the background. You don't understand, right? And you don't know how you are deploying, where exactly. And another thing is, can you see your file when you deploy to Netlify? No. Do you know where your file is being deployed to? No. So in that case, the abstraction is we don't want you to think about those. We take those worries away from you. And that's why you have to pay. You have to pay. We are running a bigger enterprise application. Some of these things cost a lot of money. But now we want to see how you can generate this file, host them somewhere. You'll be able to see the file you hosted yourself, and then build a CI/CD pipeline that takes the file you built from GitHub or whatever, and then push it to a particular server, then send. And another thing we'll do that CDR that Netlify does not provide for you is called CDN. So when you deploy to Netlify, Netlify would tell you that you don't is what is the yeah. So so I want to show it so that you know that Netlify does not give you the ability to use CDN. Oh, they've already changed this. So when you're using free plan on Netlify, they don't give you CDN. And what that means is content delivery network. So like I said, I don't want to bore you with a lot of explanation. But what that basically means is the major goal of cloud are basically restricted to data centers, and data centers are also isolated to regions. In this case, let's say you live in Nigeria and you want to run your infrastructure in Nigeria, and your clients are based in Nigeria, you most likely will buy a data structure, data infrastructure based in Nigeria, because you want your client to be able to get your data as fast as they want. Latency is very important when it comes to delivering to customers. But in this case, Netlify will not give you a server that is closer to you. They don't care about that. They just give you one server that's based in the United States. And then the time it takes to get data from the United States, from Nigeria, is quite different from the same data you needed to get data from, let's say, Lagos State. If you have a data center in Lagos State. So in that case, you would suffer a lot. It takes a lot of time for your user to be able to, consume whatever you want to serve them. In that case, we have something that is called Content Delivery Network, CDN. How CDN work is basically, CDN is a edge network deployed around the globe. So when you now have your app or website deploy, let's say EU West 1, Highland, that's Highland in the Europe. And then you want to serve, let's say, your customer in Indian, your customer in Turkey, your customer in Nigeria. Do you now start buying data centers in Turkey, in Tokyo, in India, in Singapore, because you want to serve your customer faster? No. The best bet for you and better way for you to go around this is to have a CDN. So CDN will now pick your data once this has been deployed to your own primary server, which is, it could be EUS1 Island. CDN will take a copy of this and then deploy it to its own edge network around the world. So what happens next is, if your user from Turkey, if your user from Turkey want to visit your website, CDN would know their location. So it will automatically route them to the closest region that can serve them better. So they don't need to come to US again because they want to get your data or because they want to visit your website. So CDN automatically just capture their location and then reroute them to the closest region to them, so that they won't need to come to US again before they can get your data or whatever they want to do. But out of box, Netlify does not give you that because it's expensive. But what I'm doing for you now is how we show you how to do that, because you want to serve your user globally and also have you set up a CI/CD pipeline that picks up your code, build, and then deploy automatically to your server. So let's get started. Before then, let's just check this Netlify to see if this is done. Oh, fine, this is done actually. And of course, you'll be given an automated domain. Once you click on this now,
I can't see your screen again. I don't know if it is on me.
hey, sorry about that. Okay. You should be able to see my screen now.
Yes, I can't from my
Yes.
side.
So going back to the deployment we made with Amplify. So Amplify also works the same way, like I said, how Netlify works for you. But they have also created the level of abstraction for you, not to think about how you get your application built, not to think about where your code is being deployed. You cannot see them. The same way you cannot see your code within Netlify. So once you deploy your code, forget about it. The result is what you see. And that's good for a very small thing. But when you get big, when your customer turns from 100,000 to 1 million, 10 million, you probably want to extend your application more than what you have. And how do you go about that? How you go about that is to have your own CI/CD pipeline built and also have your infrastructure set up yourself. In that case, this is more cheaper than trying to let somebody handle it for you, because it's like outsourcing this service of managing server to someone. That someone is not an angel. They will definitely charge you for it. So it's better you do it yourself to be able to extend as much as you want and also have total control over your file. You might want to move from whatever to whatever today. Just disconnect the whole thing and move to wherever you want to move to. And also CDN, you also choose to use CDN. You might not choose to use CDN from AWS. You probably want to use from Cloudflare. You can use that because you are in charge. Or like when you are in Netlify, you are not in charge. They do all of these things for you. So with that, for that, let's just get started with our deployment. So don't forget that when we check a pipeline here, the first thing they did when they're about to build your application, where is it? Okay. So is cloning your application. They said cloning fresh repository. So having a copy of your application on their own server. And that is exactly where we start from. So this process, you start with the manual process. I will do this for you one after the other. After we've completed the manual process, we'll delete that and start with another automated process that looks like Netlify. I hope that we have enough time to be able to do that. But yes, let's just get started. So the same way they clone, we had to just clone our own repository as well. I think I have the repository already, so I don't need to. Let's go. Oh, no, I think I will. Yeah, there we go. So we all know what Vue.js, React.js, and all of this and how they work. They are SPAs, single page application. They are not a PHP application that, when you want to talk to your FAQ.js, you need to have home.js, FAQ.js, and find a way for them to link together. In this case, an SPA application is just a single page application that is moving components within each other and then making Ajax call to fetch data remotely and then display it within a certain tag with JSON or whatever you use to handle your API request. So I believe most of us here would understand. I don't want to start explaining that now. So the first thing now is we want to deploy this application, and we were tasked to say, hey, Ali, you are now the new DevOps guy on the team. We want to be able to is that a notification from someone? Can I go on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
please close.
Okay.
Yes.
So yes, the first thing here is they say you were tasked by your boss, say you are now the new DevOps engineer on the team. We have a Vue.js application built by our front-end developers. We need a way to be able to deploy this app. But yes, we don't want restriction. We don't want Netlify. We don't want Vessel. We don't want AWS Amplify. We want to be able to have access to our file at any point in time. And then we also want to build our CI/CD pipeline, ourselves, so that we can monitor how the whole process goes. You can also extend as much as we can. Now I'm the Ali, the new DevOps guy. How do I start? So as a DevOps engineer, some of those skills you should master is having the knowledge of some of these package manager, npm, yarn, and all of those things, because you would encounter them a lot. There's no way you want to deploy an application and you not understand how yarn npm works. In this case, I assume that we all understand. So now we have the application on our local system, and then we want to deploy it to AWS. How should we deploy it? And how should we deploy it is good. We can deploy it with our Amplify the same way we did. But there are some factors. Your boss also tell you that you should also find a way to save costs, because you can afford to be paying AWS $10,000 in a month because you are hosting a content application that has a lot of users. So a better way to host with AWS when you have a static application is to deploy them to AWS file. Sorry, AWS file block storage called AWS S3. And AWS S3 is one of the biggest file storage would have in the whole world. They have been in the market for more than 2-3. I don't know. It should be more than a decade, about 15 years ago. So it's one of the most I'll say used platform when it comes to serving files. You probably want to store audio, video, file, and all of these things. And don't forget that an advantage that comes with hosting some of these applications like this, SPA, is that you can actually host them as static files. So hosting them as a static file means that they will not change. Else you want to update them. And in that case, you only get charged for the storage and ingress. Ingress is the internet connection that comes in to come and fetch them. You don't get charged for the storage for the cost of putting them in. You only get charged for the cost of picking them out from that storage to someone else. Example is you calling the app like facebook.com. So now we'll be using this S3 to host our file. But don't forget that right now, we don't have this file as an SPA. The only way to have it as an SPA is to build a static application, like to bundle it as an HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And to do that, most of these front-end frameworks does that by building. So building would do some underground things and then bundle them to a folder called build, and then from there we can pick it up. So that's what we do. So we start by creating an S3 bucket. Look at sorry, I'll need to share my screen again. Let me know if you can see my screen, please. Can you see my screen now?
We can see your screen.
Good. So think about S3 bucket as a folder on your laptop, right? A folder on your laptop where you can save a file, and then where you can go back to it to sort of pick the file that you are ready to pick it up again. So but AWS call them buckets. They don't call them folder, but think about them as a bucket. So we store our files in a bucket, and from that bucket is what we'll be calling them. So to be able to call them as a website, when you store a file on your bucket now, or your folder on your laptop, like on folder on your laptop, you probably want to be picking them one by one. And how does AWS know that you want to serve this particular folder as a website? That's where the work is. So I'll go on now to AWS. If you are following me, you can just search for S3 in the search bar. Open the tab. So we are currently running this particular application on a region called EU West 1. That's the island in Europe. So before you can deploy any static application, or you want to host an application, you definitely would create a bucket. Like I said, bucket is like a folder in AWS where you store your files. So we'll create a bucket now and call it Muslim Builders, MB frontend. And like I said, when you are deploying to the cloud, you have to deploy to an isolated place. And that will be also restricted to a particular region. So in this case, we are deploying to Ireland. So they are right now, and blocking permission. Yeah, we don't want outsiders to be able to fetch our file. And then we'll create a bucket. What's that? It said this already exists. Let's give a name, deployment. Let's call it deploy. Another thing is the name must be unique because AWS S3 is a global service, so that your own file will not be picked when someone else wants to pick their own file. So the name has to be unique. So let's go on to create a bucket now. Why this is going on, don't forget we have not built our application yet. So let's go to this and say yarn. That should be the command, yarn build. So what this will do for us is building. Okay, it's already telling us good. And then let's check the content. So checking the content now, you'll see that I don't. Can you all see it? Someone should confirm.
Yes.
I
Yes,
can.
we can see.
Okay. So now this folder, well, it's basically the compiled or compressed version of your Vue.js or React application that is ready to be deployed as a static file instead of how we used to have it. So, and we don't need to check this. It won't even make sense to us. So we have our deployed file now. So the next thing we'll do is go back to our AWS, and because I don't want to so yes, like I said earlier, I think I asked us to install AWS CLI. So why I said that was before you can interact with AWS, of course, any cloud, before you could log into your, before you could use Medify, you actually logged in, right? Before you could use Vessel, you had to log in. That means that you are the authorized user to be able to do it and right. The same also works with AWS. We can upload these files now on our local laptop, right? That we have here to AWS. We should tell AWS that we actually have a permission to do that. So how do we handle that? It's pretty simple. AWS has something they call access key and secret management. So access key and secret key, access ID and secret key, instead of you typing your username and password to say you want to log in, you can use those two things to authenticate yourself and tell AWS that you have permission to do whatever you want to do on AWS. And that's what I'll be doing right now. So what I want to do is basically to just copy the file we have as a generated file here to this AWS bucket. But we can do that through uploads. But don't forget that we have a couple of folders. That would take a lot of time. So instead of uploading this file through the interface, we can use AWS CLI. And that was why I asked us to install it at that time. So now I'm going to use AWS CLI to just copy the folder, that build folder, directly to this bucket. And how to do that is pretty simple. Let me see if I can achieve it. So you said AWS S3, because I'm actually interacting with S3. I want to say, because I want to ship the old folder. If we are actually pushing, let's say, this yarn.log, we can just use copy. Right. So let's test that first. So copy, let's say copy yarn.log, right? And to S3, our destination is called let's check AWS. What's the name of this bucket? The name of this bucket is called S3 MP but hopefully we have the permission to do that. If we don't have, I will need to authenticate myself again. Good. Can you see? It said upload failed, an error occur, access deny when calling put object access deny. So what I need to do now is pretty simple. I will just say I'll need to get my credential again. Cats. Sorry. So for people that are seeing what I'm doing here, if you need the auto completion, the app is called Fig, right? So it's called Fig. Sorry, if you probably want to get it. The app is called Fig. Let's so now this is my access key. I would still how this is just for test. I would get them. I would get rid of them after the call. So yeah, I'm just doing it for test. So to log in, I'll say AWS configure, and it has my access key and secret key. Good. The region, EUS1, that is Ireland. EUS2 is London. EUS3, I don't want to go and figure out the rest. So EUS1, and yes, this is done. Now we can try what we tried the other time. So let's try the command again now. And you see that this guy is saying upload successful. Let's go back now, refresh the buckets here, and see if we actually have the file. Good, this is it over here. But we actually don't need this. We just use this as a test to see if you can actually copy. So we don't need this actually. So let's just get rid of this. What we're about to do is just to copy our build file over from our local host down to this side. So now, how do we do that? We'll do that with AWS S3. Instead of CP, copy is meant to copy one file. If you want to copy a folder with AWS, you use a command called sync. And what do we want to copy? We want to copy our build file. So we tell them that we want to copy, is it build or this? Okay, sorry, this. We want to copy our this file over where? To AWS. We have auto completion, that's fine. Yeah, what's the name? The name should be MB deploy. Yeah, this is it. And would run this. So this will start uploading our file. Don't forget I said that we would have to try the manual way first. We shouldn't be doing this. In no way should you be doing it, because let's assume your front-end developer made an update now in 5 minutes time. They ask you to deploy, you have to run this command, and then the other time they also ask you to change it. So you'll be doing this often. No, we need to do that. We find a way to automate this very soon in the other part of the section. But I just want to take us through the process of the manual way, and then we'll do the automation. So now let's check AWS now. Let's go back to this particular folder. It's called bucket on AWS, don't forget. And yes, we have it here. So another thing that we need to now do now is, how do we now access this file? That's the question. Don't forget, I said it's more like a folder. So to be able to access this now, what we'll do is simple. We'll go to AWS and tell AWS that we want to host this folder as a static file. And how you do that is just go to properties and come down here. You see static website hosting as an option. You could see that this has been disabled now. So we need to edit that and enable it. And so index documents, don't forget that index document of every static file is usually index.html. So we'll do that, index.html. And then error. So this is a static file. Error would usually be index.html first or two, because you don't have an error page, except you have a particular file you will direct error into. So, but in our own case, we don't have. Good. And then we click save. So now this will give us a link. But okay, let me just, I don't want to give you the expo. If you click the link now, you see this is saying forbidden. Forbidden because we don't have access to these buckets. So how do we go about this? So forget while we were creating the bucket, we have an option here that says public file. Yes. But do we need to do this? No, we don't need to do this. So instead of accessing it over here, we would access it over the CloudFront CDN instead. So we don't want to expose our website to hackers. We don't want ordinary people to just say AWS S3 copy our, particularly when you are using the environment variable within your front-end application. They'll just select your end file and copy it over. once you expose it to the public internet. So now, rather than doing that, let's do a CDN. So doing CDN is pretty much saying we want to have an edge network in front of our deployment now that talks to our deployment on our behalf, and then edge network can now expose itself to the internet. Because edge network is only read only, you cannot write to it. So that's a security measure. So you don't get to say read and write when you are talking with edge network. Edge network is only read. You can only say muslimbuilder.com. You are reading, you are not writing. You only write when you say you want to modify or update or do something. In this case, we only want to expose our file to the internet as read only. So a better way to do that is not to expose it here as a public file. We don't want to do that. What we want to do instead is we want to use our CloudFront. So using CloudFront now, we get security because we only have read access only. That's one. Another point is we also get our file across the world. Instead of having it in this region, what's the region? EUS1, that's Ireland in the US and in Europe. We also have it exposed to the whole world because we are deploying it over the CloudFront. So it's a service called CloudFront.aws. If you are following me, you could just search for CloudFront here. You see that they said this is a global content delivery network. So when you get to CloudFront, yeah, so I also this is where I host my personal blog. So this is what's at my blog. So we create a distribution. Where's the domain? Because we want to host an S3 bucket, we'll look for our S3 bucket here. It's called MB Fontaine. Here you go. And origin is not public, right? We want to use this. So we want to use it because you see an option here saying that bucket can restrict access only to CloudFront. What here is our S3 bucket that we have our files now. We don't want any other strangers on the internet to be able to access them. We want to only give these CloudFronts, our edge network, access to be able to say, hey, where is the file? Let me deploy it to my edge network over the world so that your user can have access to them. So we choose origin access control. And so we'll just create one. Yeah. Yes, so we've created the access control here that will automatically created for you. So you don't need to sign actually. It's not necessary. Yes. Good. Yeah, and then next thing is cache behavior. We want to compress our file automatically. We click yes. Then protocol. We want to be able to serve our website only on HTTPS. We can, but what if our user are still using HTTP? So what we'll do in that case is redirect them to the HTTPS, and that's why we are choosing this option. Please playing with this thing now. And so the next thing is HTTP method allowed, because we are only fetching file. That's a GET request. And of course, you probably want to do some course. Let's allow header as well. But if you are hosting an API with CloudFront, you probably will choose these options because you'll be able to say put, patch, and all others API method. And cache, so cache is a way of saying I'm keeping this file for you so that you would come back to it and get it faster. I don't want to bore you with a lot of topic and definition. And then we are basically done with this. You just need to say, and another thing here that we should focus on is settings. Here it says choose the price that works for you. Like this is basically just saying, but the option we have here is use edge network location. So what this means is we are basically using all AWS servers across the world. So when one of our customers now want to use this website, we would serve them when they're coming from Africa, we serve them on AWS data center in Africa, so they get a better latency and better performance. So what now happens when you want to sort of add a domain to this? That's where you configure a domain name here. In your case, you should have a domain mapped to AWS CDN already, DNS already. It is called as 53. But for the sake of time, I'll just use my own personal domain and create a subdomain for myself. I'll say nb.sadola.me. That's my domain. And of course, you need SSL. I've already generated that. So let me borrow that. And good. So we're basically done. And so we go on and create a distribution.
Sorry, check your domain, please.
My domain. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. So he said this S3 bucket need to be updated. Why? Because we need to tell S3 that we only want S3 to be accessed by CloudFront. CloudFront now has generated a policy for us. So what we'll do now is copy the policy, then go to S3 buckets permission. Yeah. So this is the policy bucket, and we click on edit, and then we paste this here. Once we paste this here, the rest is just to say we're done, save. Yeah, but it takes time to get this deployment over the world. So we would have to wait for CloudFront. You see, you have a notification here telling you that this is currently deploying. It can take time actually, because you need to start from, let's say, Euro 6. It's almost 6. Interesting. Probably would need to cover the manual side first. We can have other section for the automated part. But yes, I hope that we'll get to try this on our own. So let's wait for this. This will take time because this is basically deploying our application now to the world. So, but what we can do is let's copy this distribution name and paste it here. We might be lucky. Add crop. Oh, add crop. What is add crop? That should be well, remove. It's asking you to. So let's stay with such one. Let's wait some time so that would get the benefit. We're done with this basically. So while we're waiting, please, I need to take water. I'll share your screen and I'll come back out. I think we should let's check CloudFront now, and CloudFront should help us. Am I still sharing my screen?
No,
Yeah.
you're
No,
not.
no, I can see your screen.
Okay,
I see
okay,
your screen.
okay. Sorry. Trying to do that now. So CloudFront should be done now. Okay. Okay. Let's check the origin and see if most of this conversion are done. I think we did this already. Okay. So all things being equal, if my account is still valid, I should have okay. Okay. Option denied. So what we'll do now is remember not to waste time because I need to validate my account again. But yes, so basically we have connected our CDN, but what we'll do in this case is my account is under restriction because I tried something yesterday, but I don't want to start solving that on the call. What we'll do is the validation is not going, but instead of wasting our time, we'll bypass that by saying we don't want CloudFront again to manage this. Let's say we just want this, right? We want our public access and click changes. But before this can work, we also need to update. Oh, no, we also need to. Sorry, I need to plug the router. uh, Okay, so what we're about to do is instead of trying to wait for my own validation, what we'll do is basically now we tell Cloud4 not to manage it again, and then we'll go to S3 and say, where is it? Here. And for the permission, we would say, no, allow traffic coming from the internet and click on fire.
Yeah, so I don't think you're sharing your screen at the moment.
Again. So he said, I didn't know actually. It should be coming up now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the next thing now is we want to say, okay, we want public access. And another thing now is we want to change our policy now to say, instead of doing this, right, we want to use this permission and and say what's the name of our bucket. Our bucket is called MB. Oh, is it correct? Okay. So what we are telling here is we want people to be able to get a file from our bucket as a static file. Good. So now you see that we have public accessibility as a tag. If we refresh this now, where is it? Oh. Oh, I think I need to refresh my. Where is it? What's the name, sir? Cloud fonts. Okay, here. Distribution. Yes. Wow, it's not interesting. So access denied. It should not be access denied actually. But to test if what we are working on is fine, we can try this. Okay, you'll see that yes, we have a deployment here. We have a deployment. So the next thing we'll do is to make sure it's works with CDN. Let's do our sync again. I want to make a little update and update. Where can I make updates? Yeah, don't forget view. I don't know compose like this. Okay. Let's build and build. Good, and then let's sync. Good. So we just did a new deployment now, and that should reflect here on our cloud front, telling us you have to refresh this page, and cloud front will say distribution. Good. So how do we not do that? We invalidate cache. So what I'm doing in validating this is, this is a static file and they don't get updated remotely. So whenever you deploy, all of those files are cached, stored to random access storage around the world. And of course, when you keep trying them, you get the same thing. So you only get updated file once you invalidate the object on the server. So that's what I'm doing here now, so that we can get the updated deployment. And if we click this now, we should, okay, completed. So now we have our file now on S3, but it's not secured. That's why we want to use CloudFront. So on our file, on this CloudFront, where's the CloudFront? So, okay. CloudFront will give us this. Oh, sorry. Default, I missed something. Default file here should be index.html. Apologies. That would trigger another deployment. Sorry. So basically, because we are serving a static file, we need to tell CloudFront our index file, such that when traffic comes in, it would redirect the traffic down to the root file, and this is the main job. The index file is here, and you also notice that when you generate your build, you have index.html here, and inside this index.html, if you are a Vue.js developer, you know that this is where the magic happens in terms of bonding, styling, and all of those things. And that's what exactly we did there. So sorry, we need to wait for this to also get deployed, and that can take a couple of times. So, but while we're waiting, we have pointed a subdomain here So what we need to do now is we need to also now go and configure this from our DNS server such that we don't want to keep using our website with this URL that is not reasonable. We cannot send it to your customer. So let's go to AWS DNS server called Route 53 and connect these are deployments to our subdomain that we have already mb dot isarela.me. So because I already registered my domain, I don't need to create a new hosted zone. Just click on this, and we want to create a new record. Obviously, it's CMB, and we can use CNAME. Obviously, just use CNAME, but you can also use another thing. Like you can also use a record if you are pointing to an IP address. But instead of that, we can also, so if I developer, I would advise you use this wizard, right? So you don't need to stress yourself again. So simply by saying MB, right? And for this, we'll use synonym, and then our endpoint. Sorry, I said synonym. It should be a record. So because we are pointing into another resources. And then our endpoint, we will look for CloudFront. And distribution, we can choose distribution here. It's automatically pop up. Okay, you see mb.me. And we'll click on define, create record. This should take some few seconds to work. But while we're still doing that, we can check on this, and this should have complete. No. Deploying. But why is this? Why this is deploying? Let's see our record. Record should take a few seconds, but let's say pending. This is still okay. Record claims to have gone through. So we can now try MB. Of course, that will not work now because the deployment is still not going, but it should point to something. Good. So here is it. So you see now that our MB domain now is now pointing to our deployment. And we have a domain, we have an SSL, we also have a CDN. And to know if you actually have CDN, you can go to your network here. And how do I turn this to? Okay. So yeah, you can go to network, and let's click refresh again. So the refresh now, if you click on any of these, let's to know, you'll see that this is saying via CloudFront. It's serving your file via CloudFront. And then this is saying S3 is your server because we are getting the initial file from S3, but it's being served by our content delivery network. And so you can get the rest of the details here and see how it's been served. So it's 16. Sorry, 16. So yeah, this is pretty much how what we'll do today. But I would want to entertain questions. At least we should have one or two questions, so that I would do that before we end the discussion. For the automation, this is what we do. For people on the group, I didn't foresee that I would take it. This a lot of time. So I will do I promise I will record myself another video probably over the week, and not this weekend, if not possible. Probably in 2 weeks' time. Or if organizer can also organize another call. I don't know if the host can do that, so that we can go through that. If we cannot organize a call, I'll personally do a video of the automation process and how the CI/CD works instead of us relying on the abstraction work. So yeah, please, if you have questions, please bring it on.
Yeah, sorry, before we start to entertain the questions, Thank you very much for the call. We or for the AWS like walkthrough. We thank you very much. Like we are very very grateful. Um, we've had we've had calls on React, Vue.js, and I think it's very important as well for us to kind of have an idea on how the whole cloud works and all this deployment magic that Netlify just give for us for free. Yeah, thank you very much. So just to make it known, this call is being organized by Muslim Builders. It's a community of Muslims in tech. In tech, I mean, you could be data scientist, data analyst, UI UX designer, footer designer. We don't care. Um, you could be a Vue developer, React developer. So if you are interested in joining the community, so I will share a link for you to register. Just give me 1 minute, please. Uh, okay, yeah, there you have it. Yeah, thank you very much. So if you have any question, please just wave your hand.
So if you don't have any question, you might be wondering how much does this cost when you are hosting this? Aside from the experience that you need to get this hub on AWS, okay, I'm still sharing my screen. I want to show you my blog, disadola.me. Currently, it's being hosted on AWS, and I'm just paying 51 cents. I'm not sure I'm paying up to $1, and I can show you my traffic. I do have more than at least in a month, more than 10,000 hits sometimes when I write a lot of articles. So I think viewer is okay usage. This will just give us for the last 7 days, but I can filter 30 days. I think this is not a hair. What's really important is so yeah, you could see. So now you see that the all traffic that I've served here is 4,770 something traffic, both HTTP and HTTPS traffic, right? And if I show you my cost now for the month for all of this setup, right? This setup might be scary, but you get to save a lot of money. And of course, you get a lot of benefits: security, CDN, access control by your file at any moment in time. And I just want to quickly show you my course usage for last month. It should be, yeah, you see 60 cents charge because I won't be charged at all because AWS give you I think 1 million get requests on every month on S3, and also I think another 1 million requests on CloudFront CDN every month. So I'm not sure if they are still small like my own blog now, it should not be 1 million in a month. So if you are trying to look for a way to cut down costs, you should consider that. I have a question, so let me. Someone said, um, yes, my site is SPA, is based on Gatsby. Yeah, Gatsby, yes, yes, Gatsby. That I built the site about 4 years ago. Yes, Gatsby. So someone said, would you advise using this method for deployment as compared to using Docker? Docker sounds like an overkill, but since it's platform agnostic, I think it is a good option too. So you already answered the question. That's over engineering. You are serving a static file for goodness sake. HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Why do you need a container again? And what you need to consider before you could run a container, there are a lot of overhead. You need a VM, you need a Docker engine, and all of those things before you could run a container. And running some of those things, you actually need a server, and server are not free. Anyway, AWS will give you some server for free, but they're just servers, like small servers. So static file are just HTML, CSS, something you can just host anyway, and they are just basic files. So you should not be doing over engineering. So over engineering is you using Docker to host a static file, except code, except that you needed some extension that you need to do with Docker. There are some conditions that you might want to do within your static file. Probably when you're running a mono repo, for example, and you want to do some inbuilt redirection, you probably want to see how Docker will talk to each other. In that case, they are hosting a static file like my blog, not even my blog, my company website right now. This website now serve more than 30 million users every month, right? We host it on AWS. This website I just showed you now serve more than 30 million users every month, and then it's being hosted on AWS. So for these 30 million users now, as much as I can remember, we only pay $3 for this particular instance. So it's super cheap. The only thing is the experience you need to get it there. Someone is raising hand.
Yeah, brother Bubakar.
Okay, just join again. Abubakar.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Okay, so my question is, let's assume you have some environment variables. You don't want to, like, where do you, put them, when you're hosting the front end, like, yeah.
So great question. So you can actually bundle them with the file. The same way you say process.m dot blah blah blah, and then the environment variable will be in the root file. You can do the same. In fact, my company currently we all our front end deployments that have needed environment variable at the moment. That's how we do it. We have environment variable being generated on the fly. Of course, I need to do some scripting, but the main goal is just having your environment variable in the root, and then you can use your React to say process.m dot probably authentication name or authentication key or whatever, and then you get it picked up the same way you get picked up on your local environment. So that's how you work. But another thing is, you might want to think that that's not secure enough. What if somebody hack your website? So, or someone somewhere, one of your staff, get access to your bucket and download your whole company file with the environment variable. That's the hour. Another way to go around it is, I think that we have time to go through the CI/CD pipeline. We can also attach the environment variable to the deployment on the fly. So what you do is, before you build the file, before you try and build the file on your CI pipeline, it is called code build. You can talk to a secret manager or Vault or something and get the secret remotely and then plug in automatically into the build without exposing it at all. I think that's more secure. But on our own dev environment right now, we use .f. For production, we use Vault, and then secret manager to manage our credentials. So you can actually generate a secret on the fly and plug it within your deployment. So that's how it works. Someone said I have AWS account. I'm the only one eating it, but last month I got charged 5K. So, well, this is it can work. It can be like that. But I tell you that you probably forgot to turn something off within your services. So if you want to troubleshoot AWS, so how you do it is, when you visit homepage like this, just go to your cost management. That will direct you to a page that gives you the overview of what you have been charged for. But this is not where we are going to. I want to show you a dashboard that would show you the list of the services that you'd use and how much they charge you for those services. So to do that, just go to your service account like this, and go to your billing dashboard. Once you go to your billing dashboard, so you click on bills, yeah, bills. Good. Once you get here, you will see what you have been charged for. So So let me go back to September, for example. Now you see that these are the services that are used within September, but I didn't get charged for any of them. So if you click this now, you'll see that this is zero. But in your own case, if you go to your billing and click on your bills, you would see the list of those services that you got charged for that 5K you talked about. So the next thing is for you to go to that service, terminate it, or shut it down. So another trick is if you are running EC2 instances, make sure you tick on deleting your ECS storage, EBS storage when you are deleting your EC2 instances. Most of us make those mistakes. Of course, you have to learn it the hard way. But now make sure you also delete it, because if you don't delete it, you get charged for it. But most likely, one of your services it's still on running, and AWS will charge you for that. So this is how you see the breakdown of what you have been charged for.
Nicola, thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome. So yeah, in case of no question, host, can we call it? Can we call it? Or do we also want to organize the other parts, or I should just do a video and post it on YouTube?
It would be nice if you could organize the other session so we could ask questions then.
It's up to the host. Mubarak, Abu Qadri.
Yeah, definitely we can have another call, but that will be communicated to us later in the day or coming days. So yeah,
So if you are
having
watching
an
the video on YouTube and you have a question, of course, don't forget to fill out the form, and then you can ask me, tag my name directly on the group to ask me question. Thank you.
yeah, thank you very much for the amazing session. We pray that the God Almighty increase you in knowledge and make the knowledge beneficial for everyone of us as well. Do we still have any? Okay, brother Omar, do you still want to ask question?
Yeah, please, I want to ask a question.
Okay, hopefully if he's still around, so yeah, you can ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My
Alaikum salam.
question there is that I have two questions. The first one there is that what's the implication on leaving an EC2 instance running for like, let me say 8 hours without using it? For example, now I went to bed yesterday night and I forgot to turn it off. And I've already allocated an elastic IP to it. So I forgot to turn it off before going to bed. So it was just there. And the other thing there is that what's your advice for someone who's preparing for the AWS certification?
Okay, so the first question is, what's the implication for leaving your EC2 instance running? The EC2 instance also has an elastic IP. The implication is bankruptcy. Sorry, I had to say that because elastic IP itself is cost. Like you get, I think elastic IP within a day, or it depends on the traffic. But if you are not using, if you have an idle elastic IP, you get charged about $3 in a month. But for EC2 instance, if you are running on, let's say, T2 micro, those are free tier eligible, you probably will not be charged. In fact, you can leave it running for 30 days. But if you are running EC2 instance that doesn't have free trial, you probably would end up closing up your account, because when the bills come, you won't be able to pay it up, sincerely. So if you are not using an environment again, not AWS alone, GCP, digital, all of this cloud, because they are also paying for it. So the best bet for you is terminate it, and then when you are ready again, bring it on. And of course, because you can attach an EBS instance to that particular instance. If you don't want to lose your file, you can also store the file on it. And when you bring up the EC2 instance again, you have access to your file. So you don't get to lose your file. So please, if you are running an EC2 instance, please just turn it off, terminate it, and then when you are ready to use it back, bring it on. The same way with Elastic IP. Elastic IP is also expensive. It's expensive. Please just release the Elastic IP for someone else to use. When you are ready to use it again, just bring it on. And then the second question, the advice I have for preparing AWS certification. You see, AWS certification, you probably need to find a course to watch if you don't have the time to go to they have curriculum. I think I personally have seen some of my friends have written the course certification. Recommend this guy a lot. His name is Merrick or something. I can't really. It's called Stephen Merrick or something. Yeah, as an Udemy course. It should be Udemy. So the guy says they claim that the guy is very good when it comes to AWS certification. So you could follow somebody like that. They have a structure. Yes, here is it. So Stephen Marek. So somebody like this, the cost is just, I think right now it's $10. Follow a structured way of doing this. And another thing is when you're about to write the exam, they call something practice test. So those texts are not real, they are not the real exam question that will come out during the exam. They are just preparing you for how the exam will look like before you start writing them. So when you are done with this course, I will advise you to also get the practice tests and also go through them. So like it would just tell you how prepared you are for the exam because they will also rate you based on your score. So yes, but for me, I don't really use any of those things, but of course I smacked the exam. So, but I won't advise you to do that. So just follow a course like this. Somebody, Jokola, do you have something to say?
So, my own question is: they normally talk about software architecture regarding cloud, and most times most people use AWS. So, how are they interrelated? So that's just my own question.
Come again, please. I'm not sure I get the question.
They normally talk about they talk about maybe software architecture, maybe like when they want to start building a project, maybe a large project, they will try to build like a structured architecture for those software. So, and sometimes I've been in this
Your voice is
situation.
broken. Can someone please?
Okay, can I type it?
Please do. Yes, why said can you suggest beginner friendly projects for understanding AWS? So yes, there is this guy called I've forgotten the name, but it's also I forgot. I would get the link and send it to the group, inshallah. But the guy had a GitHub repository for you to sort of practicalize your AWS knowledge. So you get to understand VPC, S3, EC2, how they work together and how to make them work as a project, like as a single project. So how you can get a file from EC2, then you can install the file on S3 and all of those things. So how they work together. The guys, I've forgotten the name. Oh yes, the cat something. Yes, AWS. Yes, this is the guy. The cost is expensive, right? But you can get it on YouTube. We have a GitHub repository, and yes, here is the repository. Learn Catherine Lab. So this basically is just a repository for you to learn some of these AWS things and how they work. So it will guide you on how to use these services and how they work together. The guy is very good. I will send it to the group. But this is the name, A Catherine on GitHub. So how software architecture is related to AWS, or how AWS is used in software architecture. So software architecture, it's actually something that is broad, but majorly what it means is each of these components, how they work together to make software. So when you're talking about software, you need to also understand software development and cycle. But that's not where you're going. Architecture in this place is how you point a domain to a microservice and then microservice talking to a database. So all of these things needed a very good decision on how you want to use. So here, when you are making a question decision, that's where you say, okay, do we want to use MongoDB or we want to use Postgres? Do we want to use Reddish for caching or we don't want to use that? So it's majorly a discussion on how you want your infrastructure to look like. And yes, when you actually go into the discussion, you also needed a cloud environment to execute this thing, and that's where the AWS comes in. But the software architecture on the whole is not related to what do they call it, to AWS. AWS is just a part, a cloud part where you get the whole architecture deployed on. I hope I've answered the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that will be the last question to be attended to, like due to time. So we plan to stop around 6 p.m. Now it's almost 7 p.m. So we say Jazakumullah khairan to everybody for joining. So if you have further questions or you want to join Muslim Builders as we quite recommend, so you can, I'm repasting the link now. So just fill in the form, you get a link to join the WhatsApp group. So thank you all for joining. This recording would also be processed and be uploaded to our YouTube channel, which will be shared with us later, probably during the weekdays. Yeah, thank you very much for joining the call. We say Jazakumullahu khairan. Until next time. Sorry, this will be the last question to be attended to. Like the last answered question will be the last question. Sorry. So, so if you have any other questions, so I send the group link to the chat. Please click on the link, fill in the form. You get a link to join the WhatsApp group, and then you can send a message to the group to ask whatever questions you have. So this will be the end of the call. Till next time, we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.